Hello, my friend. This is the fifth Fetter and the eighth lesson where we're talking about the mirror of complaining. It's a continuation of the verbal indicators that we have had. That was the fifth lesson where we talk about the verbal indicators. If you haven't watched that yet, I can recommend you to go back to watch it because otherwise this one is not going to make much sense. But the starting point that we have in what we're talking about now is that I assume that you have watched the lesson about the bubble of reality. So you know that everything you say, everything you think, and everything you think other people are saying, it's about you. Your ears are sitting on you. It's what you are hearing. It's something you hear, and the mirror is reflecting that back to you. And what we're talking about in this lesson is about the mirror of complaining. Now, complaining is a biggie because we have those chronic complainers out there. You know, the people that are complaining. There's always something to complain about. And it's like pushing a button. That people that just complain about the weather, complain about the government, complain about anything. And what is really important to know about complaining, which you probably already know, is that no matter how much you try to find a solution for those chronic complainers, they will just find something else to complain about. So somebody says something is absolutely impossible and you cannot do it, you find a solution for them, then they will just find something else about your solution that makes it impossible. And that's the thing about complaining, because it's not about what is talked about. There's a feeling in the body that is so icky, and the person cannot stay with it. You cannot stay with it. So therefore you are diverting your attention by complaining. And complaining is one of the most passive aggressive things we can do because there's no solution at all. It's very much, passive aggressive anger lying underneath. It's very much about passive aggressive guilt that is lying underneath. That there's no wish to change anything, to taking any type of, accountability for anything. It's just about the vomit just coming out, the vomit coming out. But you have to believe in a separate self for complaining to work. Complaining is such a clear type of selfing that it's almost, once you really start to realize that everything is happening from your own little bubble, complaining is one of the first things that will be so clear for you. That you very, very clearly hear that whatever other people are complaining about, they are talking about themselves. It's so blatantly clear. And also you will catch yourself a lot of times where you're complaining about something and then you will ask, okay, what was that about? What was that about? And when you really pick it apart and you really just follow it with inquiry, just follow it in, you can see it's pointing at something very, very important in your life right now, that you are acting as if you have no power. You feel powerless about whatever that is pointing at. So what we would like for you to do is to do the inquiry shortly and then really look into, are you actually powerless in this situation? Is it because you want to change something that is out of your reach, that you can't change? Is it because you are in a situation where things are happening around you and you have no say in it? You cannot avoid what it is that you're complaining about? Or is the complaining a diversion from a bigger picture, but that there's something underneath that is so much bigger and you're just throwing out all those small darts of complaining all the time to really not stay with that icky thing that is underneath? A thing that's also very important when we talk about complaining, it is that complaining, because there's such a degree of powerlessness in complaining, it very, very quickly turns into resentment and bitterness. And once you are in that bracket of resentment and bitterness, it's a never-ending loop. It's really difficult to get out of, and it really takes a lot of inquiry to look into that resentment that you feel towards another person. It's actually about something that you didn't do when you needed to do it. If you feel resentful towards your partner, or resentful towards your parents, or bitter towards your siblings or whatever, it's so many small darts that has happened over the years that has led you to that resentment that you're feeling. And it is all coming down to the complaining. It's coming out in the complaining in lots of different ways that you're complaining about lots of other things that has nothing to do with that. It's also when we talk about those chronic complainers, when you really, if you're one of those, if you really with love and compassion, just look at it and follow it, you will see that there's a very, very uncomfortable passive aggressive anger and resentment hiding underneath. And that makes it even more difficult. But the inquiry we're going to do with you in a moment, it's going to help you with looking into complaining, looking into staying with the body, because complaining is just another diversion. Like all the others, it's just a diversion. There's nothing to complain about. Complaining can only work if you're selfing. If there's an I and that I has been done wrong and now you're complaining about it. It should not be raining on a day when I have my day off, You're a victim for circumstance, but there needs to be placed an I to complain about something. And when you really look into it and you just stay with that discomfort, you can see complaining for what it is. It's just a diversion. The mirror is very, very clearly pointing at what it is that needs your love and compassion and kindness. And you will also see that complaining is very much about the fourth and the fifth fetter. It's about wanting something to be different and not wanting what actually is. And that's why everything we work with in the fourth and the fifth fetter is very, very useful if you are a chronic complainer. So make yourself comfortable. We're going to look into complaining with an inquiry. Enjoy.
In just a few moments, see if you can settle into your seat. Take a few deep breaths and close your eyes. We have all been prone to complaining. Sometimes it feels like something we do without even noticing it. It's like we're on autopilot. Have nothing interesting to say? Complain about the weather. Do you feel the need to alert everyone that your back is achy today? Complaining can also be something we seem to get a sense of pleasure out of. But why would that be? It's just wallowing in the suffering, isn't it? Let's see. I'd like you to bring to mind a situation that you have recently complained about. You might have complained out loud to someone, or you might have suffered in silence, as we say, and only complained in your head, making yourself listen over and over to how unacceptable things are and how they should have been. Whatever the situation was, notice the content of your complaint. The root of all of our complaining is that we are in a situation that is not the way we would prefer for it to be. Something could have been better and should have been better, and if only this other thing had happened, it would have been better. What good does that complaining actually do? When you complain, you're just telling yourself and others that things are not the way they should be, and you are insinuating that you know the way that the world should be run. If only you were president or dictator, the world would be so much better, right? But what are we basing this off of? Could anything ever be different than it is? How could you know? The only way that we can ever have a feeling of dissatisfaction with life is if we take note of what is right in front of us, and then enlist the help of the imagination to run a simulation of all the ways that this scenario could be improved upon. And then we compare our current situation with all of those hypothetical possibilities, only to find the current one to be less desirable than the ones that we have imagined. But the imaginary scenarios are only that, imaginary. They could not be the case for the simple reason that they are not the case right now. They may or may not happen at some other time, but that's neither under anyone's control nor relevant to your enjoyment of this particular moment. Does this fact, this lack of control, give you even more discomfort? It can be that the reason we complain is not only because things are not going the way that we would prefer, but that we recognize our own powerlessness to change them. The problem is that this recognition is only halfway there. There is truth in the insight that we cannot change what is, but there is still identification nested within that insight. There is still the idea that there is someone who is suffering the consequences of not being able to control the world, and that I am being pushed around by forces outside of my control. Come back to the original situation that you were complaining about. What did you want to happen that did not happen? Can you remember that situation as vividly as possible and then feel into the body? Is there a feeling of discomfort there? How bad is it? Can you locate the individual sensation components that make up this discomfort and just feel them? Do you see how in the past you have felt the need to distract yourself from them? Did you not have the bandwidth to just be with them as they were? If you felt and recognized the feeling in the body at all, did you feel like it was just one thing too many? It's also possible that the sensations went completely under the radar and that you are acting out of a subconscious discomfort. Either way, can you see how complaining about the external factor seemed like a reasonable coping mechanism to keep from needing to feel these sensations? Can you recognize that the urge to change the situation was not even specific to the unsatisfactoriness of this one sensation, but that it could have been substituted with a million other ones, and your reaction to it would have been exactly the same? There's an underlying feeling of irritation or anger at what your experience is, and this generalized passive aggression towards all of it leads you to a negativity towards everything. You don't know the correct direction in which to vent that frustration because there isn't one. When you are complaining, do you see that you're not even trying to change the situation? What good does complaining do? Does it create a plan of action? You don't need to complain to do that. Does it soothe the nerves of yourself and others in the situation? Definitely not. Do the words actually reach out and manipulate the events around you? Of course not. Words can't do that. Complaining doesn't actually make things different. It just gives you a sense that you can control something, i.e., the words coming out of your mouth. Until we investigate that more deeply and find that you aren't even choosing them. Continue sitting with these sensations now and ask yourself, can you be with the uncomfortable feelings? Good. Bring to mind a few more instances when you found yourself complaining. And again, notice that there is always the undercurrent of dissatisfaction with the present the way it is. And notice if there is an undercurrent of anger or irritation bubbling away because of it. Because things were not the way you wanted them to be, there's a feeling of helplessness and a loss of control. Do you see this recurring thread? And do you see how this insecurity would lead to those feelings of irritation? Like everything we experience from our bubble of reality, what you were complaining about when you were being passive aggressive towards others is a reflection of the way in which you were being passive aggressive towards yourself. How are you manipulating your own behavior because you are not getting what you feel you need? Are you not listening to and reacting to your own needs spontaneously? So you need to coerce others into providing for you those things that you haven't been able or willing to provide for yourself? Throughout your life, start to become aware of all the things you are complaining about and what you are trying to get from others. Is it sympathy? Then why can't you feel sympathetic for yourself? Turn it around to see how you are not meeting your own needs and why you feel like you need someone else to step in and meet them for you. So, when you are in a situation that is not going the way you would like for it to go, you can ask yourself these questions. In what way do I feel powerless right now? What am I looking to get from others by complaining about this? Can I provide that thing for myself without needing to manipulate others for it? What do I want to happen that is not currently happening? How do I feel like I know what should be happening? Do I feel like I have the ability to control this or any situation? And if so, what is creating the illusion of choice right now? And then scan your thoughts and bodily sensations for anything that can be contributing to the feeling of being one who could choose or act differently. Then, who is it who is suffering from the inability to change my reality? Keep a vigilant eye out for identification in the ideas of being the victim of circumstance and the one who could make things otherwise. So when you hear complaints coming out of your mouth or arising in your thoughts, take that as a signal to turn your attention inwards. There are multiple things that we can observe in this moment. First, check in with the body to see if something feels uncomfortable. Is it leading to irritation or anger? Then look into what you're trying to gain by complaining to others and see if you can fulfill those needs for yourself. And when those urges to complain pop up, see if you can find the beliefs or assumptions that are lurking behind those thoughts. See if you are making unfair comparisons to hypothetical storylines about all of the ways that this moment could be improved upon. And then come back to simply what is, and see if you can find the contentment and the stillness underneath that dissatisfaction. Can you find the equanimity in the appearances around you simply as they are? This is possible when you no longer feel the need for other people or situations to contort themselves to make you feel comfortable. You can provide for yourself everything you need in any moment, and that is where freedom comes from. Sit now for a moment and reflect on this inquiry, and feel free to listen to it over and over again as needed to remind yourself what to look out for. And then, when you're ready, open your eyes and go about your life, bringing these new insights into your interactions with others and with yourself.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed it. Did you see how much of the aggressive bully has that undertone of aggression in the complaining, or how much the passive aggressive bully has that undertone of the passive aggressiveness when you're complaining? Do you see that all that is just aversions? Can you stay with that? So if you, when you were working in the second fetter, you recognize yourself in different parts of your life as the aggressive bully, as the passive aggressive bully, as the chameleon, do you see that that was just a concept? And now it's like the boundaries between it is beginning to blur. It's beginning to dissolve itself. And working with complaining and working with the bubble of reality, it just becomes so clear that it's all just smoke and mirrors, you know? Underneath, there's someone, not someone, but there's something, an experience that is arising that needs your compassion, love, and kindness. And just staying with that in the body, going away from the head, releasing the label, and just staying in the body, staying with that feeling, meeting it with love and compassion. There's no need to complain. So really looking into, are you intimidating or are you manipulating? And also feel into that delusion about being powerless, about being a victim. Is that even possible? Repeat the sentence of, I'm safe, I matter, I'm here, until you can feel that you having your back. I'm here for you. You matter, I'm here. That when you keep doing that, you're meeting what wasn't met. And that is when you can start to dissolve the entire delusion about the separate self, the suffering, about the need to complain, because you just own all of it. And the last thing I would like to say is that when we look into the mirror complaining, and looking at where the aversion about complaining actually is pointing, what is it pointing at? Cannot be in a body that experience the need to complain, the need to divert with complaining. And why does that primary sensation of complaining arise at all? What is it that needs my attention? And then I would like for you to create sentences with it, with how is this about me? So all the things you complain about, write all of it down. But you cannot mention anyone else. You cannot mention any name, any government, anything like that. It needs to be specifically about you. How is all this about me? How do I recognize something that needs my attention when I'm complaining? And the second thing, is there any connection between the primary sensation of complaining and the need to react? Look into that diversion. Do the inquiry as many times as you need. Whenever you feel the need to complain or you hear complaining, know that there's a diversion happening. There's something in you that is so icky to stay with. Can you just stay with that? Just breathe into it. Just stay with that. Detach the thought about complaining and just stay with the sensory experience in your body, so you don't need to divert anymore. And the last thing, does aversion and complaining, the need for complaining, even exist? It's just a feeling. It's just a feeling, just like hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting. It's just a sensation in the body that is arising. There's something in the body that is happening, and you divert from that and start to complain. When something is happening in the body and you personify it and you make it into, I am complaining is happening, then there needs to be an I that is diverting. So you're selfing. We're back to the first fetter. So you're selfing about something that you do not believe that you can stay with. Breathe. Get back into your body and breathe. And the last thing is Todd's amazing quote, no story, no reactivity, no problem, and no suffering around it. I love that. Thank you.